One part of our brain that's extremely influential in the way we act and the way our life goes is our habits. A habit is a typically subconscious routine of our behavior that we repeat regularly in our lives. The American Journal of Psychology defined a habit as a more or less fixed way of thinking, willing, or feeling acquired through previous repetition of a mental experience. Habits often go unnoticed by the person who's exhibiting them because they're so routine in our lives. The person may not even realize they're partaking in a certain habit. Old habits are really hard for people to break, and new habits are really difficult for people to form because these behavioral patterns that humans repeat become imprinted in our neural pathways. However, it is possible to form new habits through repetition of the behavior that you desire to learn. When we repeat behaviors in a consistent or a similar context, we achieve an incremental increase in the link our brain has between that context and that behavior. When that link in our brain increases the automaticity of that behavior in that context. An automatic behavior or habit is efficient, unconscious, and uncontrollable. An example of one of these automatic behaviors or habits is driving. We're not constantly thinking about how we're driving or what our body's doing. However, our unconscious brain takes over and performs the correct behaviors to drive safely. We learned in our book, The Power of Habits, that the process to form a habit is a 3-step loop. Those 3 steps are a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is whatever triggers the brain to use the habit. The routine can be a physical, mental, or emotional action that our brain thinks is the proper response to the trigger. The reward is whatever the result of the action was, and that reward helps your brain decide if this particular loop is worth remembering for the future. Over time, this loop becomes more and more automatic, and eventually, the cue and the reward become intertwined in our brain, and we begin to anticipate and crave the reward, which can cause bad habits. So that is what is a habit.
Hi, I'm Joe Keto, and I'll be discussing good versus bad habits and the story of Eugene from The Power of Habits. Humans have their own individual characteristics that make them who they are. The habitual nature of an individual is one of the ways that you can individualize yourself from others. Our brain perceives bad habits subconsciously, which leads them to linger along and go without change. Good habits are developed through our conscious thoughts and actions. These are not easy to form because the things we want are typically subconscious, leading them to create bad habits in our daily lives. Before we consciously think about something, the subconscious mind has already decided without even knowing. We can turn good habits into subconscious thoughts by consistently doing the task for at least a month or more. For example, the story of Eugene. He was an older guy who had a problem with remembering things from the past especially. And one day, him and his wife would go on walks daily, same time, same route, for months on end. And one day, he went out on his own on accident, and his wife didn't realize that he was gone, that he had slipped out. So she called the police, and she was wandering the streets looking for her. She was freaking out, but when she came back to the house, Eugene was there. And they found out that Eugene had subconsciously walked the route that they usually walk without her today. And so that's just the story of how being able to create a good habit by subconsciously doing something can lead to you being able to do something without even thinking about it. So that's just the moral of the story is the most efficient way to eliminate bad habits is to replace subconscious bad habits with good habits. A habit cannot be erased, it must be replaced. For keeping the change, you must believe it is possible.
My name is John McLean. I'm going to discuss the benefits of good habits and some of the detriments of bad habits, as well as how do we implement eradicating bad habits and creating good habits. Habits are not only formed by the athlete, they can be formed by coaches as well, especially in the strength conditioning realm. Some obvious detriments of bad habits is laziness. A coach can become lazy in his programming. An athlete can as well in the weight room, and that can translate to the field and then to the classroom. Another detriment of a bad habit would be poor form and technique. This can lead to injuries and plateaus in strength and speed gains. For example, if we have an athlete that's Jim, if he if he squats and he always has a bad habit of letting his knees go valgus, letting the knee get inside the ankle, if he goes out to the playing field, he goes to make a cut, and he has that same knee inside of the ankle, he could see a major injury like an ACL or extra stress placed on the ankle. And then there are obviously extreme pluses and improvements when we utilize good habits. An entire athlete and performance is based on habits he creates through the weight room, on the field, and in the classroom. A habit of arriving early to the weight room can help for healthy time management throughout their entire athletic career, as well as their career when they're done being an athlete. And then another good habit of creating that good form when I squat, when I go to cut then now, my knee won't go inside my ankle. I'll be able to make a fast, healthy, strong cut. And then having constant energy in the weight room can lead to energy on the field, and then energy in the classroom as well, helping keep athletes available and eligible and setting them up for their career afterwards. To form good habits, we need to then cue the athletes on what to do. So if I see Jim letting his knee fall in, cue him on trying to rip the tissue paper under the floor with his feet, spread the ground apart, different things like that. Cues are definitely the best way to help form good habits and deter athletes from utilizing bad habits.